Hi, this is James. I am doing this assignment as a part of a class I'm taking at Liberty University. This is not one of my normal videos. I will get back to that once I get back from my vacation. I came to North Carolina to see family, but I'm also trying to get my schoolwork caught up with as well. I wrote a paper on John Wesley and the differences between John Calvin and John Wesley. I believe that a lot of the change that happened in American Christianity happened because of the influence of Wesley and the Methodists. But in order to write something about that, I would need to write an entire book. So I was advised by the professor to just focus on the differences between Calvin and Wesley, which was very good advice indeed. Um, the four things that I talked about in my paper are this. Number one, the things that Calvin and Wesley disagreed on. I shouldn't say just Calvin. I should have said, now that I've written my paper, the things that the Reformed movement or um, people that came after Calvin, because Wesley dealt mainly with Charles Whitfield uh, and other people like him. Obviously, Wesley didn't deal with Calvin directly. Talked about things that John Calvin and John Wesley agreed upon, things that Reformed and Wesleyan thinkers agreed upon. I talked about things that made Wesley distinctive. Um, he wasn't just an Arminian. He had certain things about his theology and preaching that made him distinctive. And then last, I talked about things that I believe that Christians today could learn from Wesley and should imitate Wesley. Um, in my paper, I talked about how Wesley really didn't sit down and write out a. I'm looking at my computer, by the way. He did not look to intentionally sit down and write a systematic theology. His work was not as concise as Calvin's was in when Calvin wrote the Institutes of the Christian Religion, which is a classic theological treatise and something I would encourage everyone to read, even if you're not Reformed. Um, I did use. Let me go back. I did Jim Scott Orrick's book Mere Calvinism just to provide a balance to explain Calvinism, and I think Orrick does a really good job at explaining what the 5 points of Calvinism are in a very concise manner. Don Thornton wrote a great book on the Wesleyan Quadrilateral, and I'm sorry, I'm staying at my aunt's, and I have no idea what that sound was. Um, and Don Thornton wrote, um, well, this is more about what they agree upon. He said, although he did not limit his ministry to the studying and writing of theology, Wesley demonstrated a holistic understanding of the Christian faith that superseded his particular skills as a biblical exegete or systematic theologian. The theological gestalt he developed drew from the theological method that he inherited from the Reformed and Anglican traditions, along with a Catholic spirit that sought to incorporate a wealth of insights regarding true Christian tradition. So he did have some things in common with the Reformed thinkers. And remember, though, that Wesley sought a middle ground between Calvinism and Arminianism. Uh, Now, some Reformed people responded and thought that Calvin, when he spoke of Christian perfection, that he was teaching a theology of works. And Albert Outler, uh, in my opinion, probably he did write the best book on John Wesley. In fact, many of the other books that I read on John Wesley quote Albert Outler. Outler said, the Calvinists promptly decided that Wesley's stress on perfection was a tantamount to reintroduction of works righteousness into the doctrine of salvation. This is the part of the implication of heterodoxy that went with the label Arminian. They pointed to Wesley's insistence upon a time span separating the experience of saving faith and sanctifying faith as a necessary interval for Christian discipline. The Calvinists, however, were not the only ones to misconstrue this doctrine according to their own particular prejudices. The Methodists in America, especially in the 19th century, contributed to a very considerable confusion by interpreting perfection in terms of the second blessing or entire sanctification as a state of grace, distinct from justification, attainable instantaneously by faith. So, let me scroll down a little bit. I'm already past my time on it. I apologize. Let's just skip to the last one. The thing that I want to imitate from Wesley more than anything else was his desire to work with people who were different than him. His work in proclaiming the gospel with George Whitefield is something that I believe that today's church needs to hear. I believe that today's church needs to see and follow the example of Wesley and Whitefield. They didn't agree on everything. They had their differences, but they were willing to work together because they wanted more and more people to come to know Jesus. So, and I will say this is one of the main reasons that I truly look up to John Wesley. This class for me, learning about Christianity in the 1800s, that was a life-changing experience. I found in Wesley somebody who has articulated some things that I've believed in for a very long time, ever since 2009. I felt, after doing a class in seminary on the theology of Karl Barth, I felt that there was some kind of middle ground between Calvinism and Arminianism, and I found it in John Wesley. And I will end this video by saying a very famous quote of Wesley's, where he said, "Do all the good you can." Here, let me put this over on my computer. That way I'm at least looking close to it. He said, Wesley said, "Do all the good you can by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, in all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as you ever can." One of the things that separated Wesley from others in his era, and I think it separates him from most theologians, is he's more interested in orthopraxy than he is in orthodoxy. He's interested in people living a right life rather than just having head knowledge about the Savior. So, thank you for watching.